bum bum ba-dum bum 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 ba-da-da-dum bum bum ba-dum ba-ba-dum rum bum 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 ba-dum bum 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 ba-da-da-dum bum bum ba-dum ba-ba-dum. Hi, friends. So good to see you. Good evening. It's Monday night, and we do fun things on Monday night. Every Monday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, we do one thing and one thing only, and we talk about homeopathy. I teach you what I know. I hope I inspire you. I hope I encourage you to get more involved in homeopathy and do as much as you possibly can to help yourself, your children, your dog and cat, your family, your clients, your patients. Let's go. Let's go Buffalo, as they say. So, hi friends, my name is Joette Calabrese, and I am a homeopath, and I'm here to do just what I said I'm going to do every Monday night. For those of you who don't know me, for those who do know me, welcome, my dear friends. It's so great to see you all. I love to see you coming in. Tell me where you're coming from, and also tell me if you are new. I like to see how many new people we've got, and then I can kind of adjust to a certain degree what I teach tonight, because homeopathy is an in-depth medical form, medical paradigm, method, whatever you might want to call it. So hi-ho silver, and away we go. Let's talk tonight about the most common conditions for children and the remedies that I like to consider as top notch. So let's say hello to a couple of people right now. Not freezing here, says Pat in Grand Rapids. Hi, Elizabeth Nair. No, I'm in Florida. It's warm here. It's pretty darn warm. And hello from Minnesota. And from Irene says, good evening, everyone. Howdy from Oklahoma. Happy Monday, Joette Calabrese and friends from Oklahoma. Hello from hot East Texas. Yeah, hot. And is it windy there too? It was kind of windy here in Florida a couple of days ago, with that storm that was going through the Northeast, I think it was. Okay, yeah, and I do love that you are asking, where are you in Arizona, Tina? Asks Kathy. It is good for you to know this, friends. We don't know what's forthcoming. We don't know what our world will bring. So I urge you to connect here. Find out where people live. If you say, I'm from Florida, I'm from DeLand, Florida, that's Bobby Hill. Maybe someone else is near her too. And maybe you want to make a connection. I know that a lot of people have made connections through not only this forum, but through my academy and study groups and our little universe of those who are interested in this method of homeopathy. All right, hi from San Francisco, and greetings to you. With Joette says, Debbie from Pennsylvania, I've been studying with you for 7 months. It's beautiful, Debbie. I'm delighted. Take advantage of everything that I offer for free. And there's plenty. Years worth, 10, 12 years worth, Monday Night Lives, and my blog. And the blog is old. I think it's 14 years old. Every Sunday night we put it out there. And also we have our podcasts, and I think you'll really enjoy the podcasts. Sometimes I'm on the podcast. Sometimes Kate interviews my students or someone of interest. And so I know you're going to get a lot out of all of that. So hello from Virginia. And let's see what else we've got. Hello from Wisconsin and Jacksonville, North Carolina, and California and Kentucky. Let's see. Most of us wore winter wear to church yesterday, drowning and chilling in Alberta. Oh my goodness. Alberta. We love Alberta. It's one of our favorite provinces. Greetings from Little House in the Big Woods from Fura Bush, New York. We are so appreciative to you. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, sweetie. Thank you. People are very, very kind. Okay. Let us talk about this discussion about remedies for children. First, let me tell you this. When I teach protocols, friends, such as there's a protocol, let's say, for bloating. I teach Lycopodium 200 twice daily. Sometimes we use Lycopodium 200 mixed with arsenicum twice daily. Now, that bloating can be useful for a child, a teenager, a young adult, a woman who's pregnant. It can be used for an elderly man. It can be used for a horse. Yeah, blowed in horses is really dangerous. It can be used for a dog. So when it is a protocol, meaning this is the name of the condition, this is the name of the medicine that I'm suggesting that I teach. This is the potency, meaning 200C, and this is the frequency, meaning twice daily. That is a specific protocol. And when we have those protocols, it can be across the board for most people. Generally speaking, there are those exceptions, but generally speaking, that's the way we look at it. But then there are times when there are subcategories of I always hesitate to use this word, but it is a valid word, of constitutionals, meaning a medicine that is specific to the kind of the overall aspect of the person. And constitutional medicines are not what I encourage people to be looking for necessarily, because I am so enamored by using protocols that have been used for a couple hundred years and have proven themselves clinically. But admittedly, there are certain homeopathic medicines that are particularly valuable for certain groups of people. Now, I'm going to put this aside for a moment, because I find that, for example, it's not a person, it's a dog. I find that remedies for dogs are often rather simple, such as sulfur. It's not always, please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that when something's going on with the dog that you automatically think, oh, I got to give him sulfur. No. I want you to look up in your Materia Medica. Hi, Nicole. I want you to look up in your Materia Medica and read up on sulfur, so you can say, I think this does fit the dog. The dog is making a mess in the house, and the dog has odors, and the dog is always hot, and it gobbles up its food, and that's very congruous with the medicine, homeopathic medicine called sulfur. So dogs can we often consider that. Now, if the dog had bloating, I'm not going to use sulfur necessarily. I'm going to more likely go towards lycopodium 200 twice daily, because that's the protocol, and it is very, very specific. So if I look up in my repertory, this is Robin Murphy's 4th edition of the Meta Repertory. I'm looking under the section called Children. It's homeopathic medicines that are listed for children, and I will show you under that heading. This is the rubric right here. Oops, right there. So I'm looking at everything backwards. Right there. All of those medicines right there are all homeopathic medicines, often used for children. They're for children's constitutions. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to upend the decision to use, for example, lycopodium, but what's going to do is kind of give us some information that could be useful when we're dealing with a child. So, I'll give you another example. If a woman, or a man for that matter, has migraines, they get headaches, we often use a medicine called picric acid, and we mix it with belladonna. It can be really powerful. Could we use that for a child? We could. But let me interject just a little bit. Let me persuade you that you might want to rethink that just a little bit. You might want to rethink it and say, what are the good medicines for children that might compete with our decision to use picric acid mixed with belladonna? Well, I'll tell you what I think it is. If you look in these sections, or if you're a student of mine, I'd want you to look. I'm on page 607 in the Meta Repertory. And under that, we see other medicines that are very, very important. Calc carb, excellent medicine for children. Calc phos. These are remedies that are, if I showed you, it'd be hard for me to show you because the lettering, well, maybe I can. I'll get it up very close. Calc carb. You see it's bold, capped, and underlined. Calc phos. bold, capped, and underlined. And off of the top of my head, my guess is chamomilla is the same thing, and a few others. But when we look at, yes, it is. When we look at a child that has headaches, I want you to think in terms of the fact that a child's headache, it's not common for children to get headaches. It's much more common for a woman to get headaches, particularly around her menses, etc. But when it comes to a child, it's not that common. So we're thinking children are in a state that's much different, a flux state. They're always moving. I don't mean just moving busy. I mean, they are growing. So when we think of a headache for a child, instead of picric acid belladonna, we might just kind of rearrange that and think a little bit more like calcarb or calc-phos. Both very good medicines for children. Now, calc-phos, if you know homeopathy, you know that it is a cell salt. It's a biochemic cell salt, and that is one of our great categories in homeopathy that supports the body's remineralization and salts that the body needs to uptake in general to be healthy. And so I am going to start my whole picture tonight with, I want you, no matter what the condition is that the child has, whether it's bloating or a headache or eczema or irritability or whatever it might be, I want you always to think first, could calc-phos do the heavy lifting? And if you go to read on that remedy, calc-phos, then you might find that there's a little more weight towards the calc-phos. You almost can't go wrong if you do that. So even if it doesn't clear up the headache, you may get some other benefit. Now, what are the other benefits? I want you always to be looking for satellite conditions, friends. When we're looking at homeopathy, if the person has got a headache, let's put the child aside for a moment. If the person has a headache and it's a migraine headache and their shoulders are up and they're very tense and they're nauseous and oh my gosh, the pain is unbearable, and we give them picric acid mixed with belladonna for that migraine headache, even though the pain is not necessarily gone yet, the shoulders start to drop a little bit, or they're able to converse a little bit better, or they're finding that maybe their appetite has returned a little. Maybe they can get a few things done. The pain is still there. So we're looking for other aspects. Maybe we could call them satellite conditions. Maybe instead we call them just idiosyncrasies or characteristics of the person. We're always looking for that. So back to the child. If the child has bloating or a headache, we could use other medicines, but I'm going to entreat you to consider calc-phos. Now, what potency? 6. Calc-phos 6, calc-phos 3. Those are both really good potencies. That means because they're low, when they're low, you can use them a little more frequently, twice a day, maybe 3 times a day. And they can also be used over a long period of time, as long as you're not showing any I wouldn't call them ill effects, any provings with them. Okay. Let's take a little break. Let's see what Nicole says. Love calc-phos for children. Yes. Let's see what else everyone else is saying, because I love to hear your own personal examples and what you have found in your clients, your patients, your family. All right. Good. Carol Travis says, homeopathy has saved my dog's life regarding fleas and seizures. Oh, you bet. It'll slam dunk. Calc-phos is great for adenoid growths and swollen tonsils, says Nicole. Let's not go right into removing them. Thank you, Nicole, for saying that. You're absolutely right. Yeah, that's one of the things I wish I could have my money back on. I had my tonsils extracted when I was 3 years old, and I wish I could get my tonsils back, and I wish I could get my parents' money back. Hi from New Zealand, says Cherie Smith. Pretty name. Okay. Now let's go. Yes, there are remedies for OCD, and OCD is, of course, for children and adults. And let me also say, There are specific remedies for specific conditions. I don't want you to get the idea that Calc Phos will treat everything, but I do want you to know that if you're in doubt, you could potentially use Calc Phos 3 or 6 once, twice a day. So if you're frustrated, now I won't be talking about OCD perhaps tonight, but if you want to go to Joette's Learning Center and scroll down, you'll find a course called Mindful Homeopathy, and it's exactly what I talk about is OCD. So I want to go over a couple of others. I want you to remember that Calc Phos 3 or 6 approximately twice daily, sometimes 3 times a day, depending on the severity, or at least perhaps in the very beginning. I also want you to be thinking of calc carb, especially if there are allergies, food intolerances, frequent colds, frequent sore throats, frequent chest infections, frequent ear infections, conjunctivitis. If you see that frequently, now we're thinking more like calcarea carbonicum, calc carb. Oh, am I too far from the mic? I will try to get closer. Okay. Can you hear me better now? Is that better, friends? Tell me. All right. Calc Phos, says Michelle, changed my 2-year-old. He put the terrible in terrible twos, and now he is such a little sweetheart. He also is not such a picky eater now, and his teeth are improving. That is a big part of this as well. Before I go to Calc Carb, let's stay on the Calc Phos a little bit longer, because Calc Phos is very specific for teeth, how they grow in. They're the enamel of the teeth, the strength of the teeth. Yes, okay, you can hear me much better. Thank you for letting me know. Calc Phos for growth, and that has to do with teeth. Calc Phos for picky eating. Be very, very mindful that picky eating is common in children. We kind of expect it as part of their growth. Okay, eczema and food allergies. Yes, well, let me just say, calc carb, we've just touched on it in a moment. We'll come back to it in just a moment. I love when people come up with new ideas that I hadn't thought of. Yes, for slow dentition. Thank you, Nicole. For dentition that's off. Maybe the teeth are delaminating. Now, in babies and children, teeth are not supposed to be, the baby teeth are not supposed to be strong like adult teeth. So I don't want you to freak out that that the teeth are not as strong, and you're assuming that means that the adult teeth that will come in will be represented by the first level of teeth, and that's not necessarily so at all. They are porous. They are intended to even dissolve, to let go, break apart, dissolve, etc. after a certain amount of time. Okay. Yes, you had to turn me down, says Cindy. All righty. Okay, now let's go to calc carb, because calc carb is all about food intolerances, food allergies. It can also be hay fever. It can also be allergies from perfumes, chemicals. Calc carb was a very good medicine for me years ago when I had pretty severe chemical sensitivities. It wasn't the only one I used, but it was a good one for a while. And it is also for a child who asks deep questions. 5 years old. Mommy, what's the meaning of life? The cat died. Mommy, where did the cat go? What is heaven? And so we're talking about children who have the propensity for being kind of little adults in a way. They are often quite responsible. They can be put down on the floor with a wooden spoon and a strainer and a pot and be perfectly satisfied for hours. By the way, let me just say parenthetically, friends, I don't believe children really need toys. I'm sorry. I don't, it doesn't mean you can't have a swing in the backyard. Yes. A sandbox. Very cool. Yes. Really good. But all these plastic toys, no. Not only is it unnecessary, superfluous, but it can drive a poor mother and father crazy. Just a pot and a pan, stand at the sink, play in the water, sit in the bathtub. Those are the best toys ever. Watch mommy cook. watch mommy clean the shoes, and then help her right along. I think those are the best ways for children to learn. All the plastic toys, even if they have numbers and letters and all that. Look, I know that everyone wants to buy those, but I'm going to tell you, my friends, I think you're better off without all of that stuff. So, all right. Now, let me get to the next one here, because I've got another rubric that I want to touch. Angry children. I showed you that chamomilla was in that first rubric. Angry children. One of the best medicines for children that are angry is chamomilla. And speaking of teeth, it's often when the teeth are erupting. Angry children, chamomilla. I love it in a 200C. See how we use the calc phos in a low potency? The calc carb we might use in a 30th potency. And chamomilla I like in a 200C. We don't need to use it for a very long time at all. All right. See, Elizabeth says, calc carb 200 is working beautifully for my brother's seasonal allergies. He's an adult. Yeah, it works for adults as well. But yeah, we can focus. My grandsons had a grand time with some paint rollers and soapy water today, and we made mud pies. You got it, Dolly from PA. Yes. My son has way too many toys. I know, Michelle. You know what? It's just eliminate. Take half of them out, put them in a box, put them in the attic. They won't miss them. And then let them play with what remains. Then, after a while, when they get tired of those, take those, put them in a box, put those in the attic, and just take a few from the attic down. All right, calc phos or 6X for headaches in children. Also, picky eating, calc. Okay, we're reiterating. Thank you very much, Amy. All righty. So if the child is angry or overly sensitive, ow, don't touch me. No, I don't want that. Nothing calms them down. Everything is oversensitivity. They're irritable. They're angry. They arch their backs. And it could be during teething. It might not even be teething. We're going to think of chamomilla. All right. I'm going to quickly go through some other ones. Bashful children. Now, the reason I'm bringing up bashful is for a specific reason, because someone actually already brought up tonsils. Bashful. The main medicine for bashful children, actually there are 2 or 3. I like silica, I like calc carb, but my favorite is Barita carbonicum. And Barita carbonicum is for tonsils, kissing tonsils. They're so enlarged that they're practically kissing. Or adenoids, which are further back. Adenoids that are enlarged. Barita carbonicum can do great work. Use it in a 30th potency a couple times a day for a period of time. What's a period of time? Well, if it's tonsils and you don't see a change within, 2 weeks, then you carry on. Keep going. Yes, very good idea, Bernie. Teach them to donate toys they don't play with anymore. Yeah, you want to teach children that we give to others who don't have. All righty. That's bashful. Let's see if we can touch on something else. Colic in infants. This is so common. And I have to say that one of my favorite medicines for colic is mag-phos, magnesium phosphoricum. There are others, but Nux vomica is also a good one, especially if the mother had a medicated birth or the child or medicated pregnancy. Nux vomica, it helps clear it. Often colic comes from all the drugs the mother was subjected to during the pregnancy or during the birthing process. So Nux vomica can be very good. Or the child has already had medications. Nux vomica is a great one. But also mag-phos. Mag-phos is for the pain that is better from pressing and warmth. A hot water bottle against it, a warm hand, a warm cloth against the abdomen is a really great comfort to a child. Colosynthis is also one of my favorites. I like that in a 30th potency, and I use that for children who like that extra pressure at the abdomen. Sometimes the mother will hold the baby up so that the baby's belly is up against her shoulder, and that pressure is what calms the child down. Maybe not permanently, but even for just a little while. So there we go. Let's go to another one. Conscientious. Children who are conscientious. I think this is such a fascinating rubric because one of our main medicines is calc carb. Now, in this rubric, you're not going to see it very heavily. I believe that that needs to be added to this repertory, that calc carb is number 1. But also, we see arsenicum, carcinosin, and ignatia. But I personally, for a conscientious child, I personally have chosen, personally meaning in my practice, taught through the years, used it for my own children. One child was conscientious. I used calc carb. It was a beautiful medicine. Okay, let's see what we've got here. Magfast. Mugfast, says Nicole. Yes, I call it Mugfast because you can put the pills, the Magfast pills, into a mug of hot water, wait for it to dissolve, stir it once, and then have the child take a sip, or whomever needs that. Yeah, here we go. Amy says Magfos and Cholesynthis 30, amazing for menstrual cramps. Yes, whether that's a child, meaning a young girl who's going through menarche, that's a beautiful thing to be able to give her something without giving her drugs. All right, let's see, what else do we have? That people are helping each other with spelling. I love to see that. Michelle Tom says, for kids, what would be the dose and frequency for Calcarb 30? Every day or 200 every other day? Well, if you're using a 30th potency, you might use it every day, but after a while, maybe in the very beginning to get it started, but maybe after a while, every other day. Let's see. Shy, insecure child. Yeah, I think I just talked about that. Just listen again, Mayela. Some of these, you will see this. It'll go up on YouTube tonight, and you'll be able to watch it then again. Why does conscientiousness need to be remedied? Good question, Michelle, because it can be sometimes too conscientious. You don't want a child that takes on all the worries and the woes of the family. You don't want a child to be pacing around the house worrying about dad not coming home on time. You don't want a child who maybe overheard that the mortgage was due and you don't know if you're going to be able to come up with the amount that the next day or that month, and the child worries. You don't want that. You don't want a child who takes on adult conscientiousness, and some children will do that. Or if they are, as I said earlier, asking about metaphysical questions, religious questions, you don't want them worrying about what's going to happen at death. Asking a question, answering it accordingly, that's the perfect time to do that. But after that, you don't want it to go too far. So hyper conscientious. Yes, you're right. You're absolutely right, Michelle. So, but we don't, in the repertory, we don't have to say hyper. We're just looking at, we know that if it's in here, it's likely going to be something that's a little bit heightened. For a child with allergies and food insensitivities, how long would you use a 200C administering every other day? Well, what I like to talk about, and I teach this in my courses, and I do an allergic course, Joette Calabrese, scroll down to allergic, and you'll get the exactly how I approach allergies, but I will give you an overall picture right now. And what I'm going to tell you now is that you use it until you see a shift, meaning you're going to assess it in about 6 to 8 weeks. And at that 6 to 8 week mark, if you see that the child is possibly moving and changing just a tiny bit, this is absolutely wonderful. That's what we want to see. And then you push it a little bit further, another 6 to 8 weeks, and see how far you can go. Sometimes that's all it takes is 6 to 8 weeks. Other times it may take many months. Okay. Yes. Oh, says Vanya. OCD, child vacuums and mops multiple times a day, worried it will spread to the bed. That's fear of infections or fear of yeah, well, that is super conscientious, and it's fear of infectious diseases, etc. I'm not going to say it. I'm going to have one of my students say it. What child vacuums and mops multiple times a day, worried it will spread to the bed. Yes. Okay. What would be a good remedy for teeth that are slow to erupt after the child's losing it? We just talked about that. I think the first medicine I discussed is really lovely for something like that. Thank you very much, Katie. Arsenicum album. Yes, arsenicum album. Nicole also says carcinosin or arsenicum album. Hair twirling and pulling it out and teeth grinding. Let's see, I'm not going to get quite that far. I'm sorry, but arsenicum album for that anxiety, that fear of being poisoned. It could be fear of germs, or it could also be fear of chemicals that are outside and are coming in. Andrea says gelsemium is for worry, but what's interesting about this, what was brought up here, is not just worry. It's a very specific kind of worry. They're worried about something in particular. All righty. So I'm just going to go one more minute because we're at 8:30 already. Goodness sakes. Constitutions for children. I'm on page 610. Calcarb, calcphos, phosphorus, pulsatilla. Those are the top ones. We can also consider barita carbonicum, lycopodium, silica as well, and sulfur. So I know that homeopathy seems very complicated, friends, and it can. And I do believe that it can be made more complicated by the teacher. I endeavor to make it as uncomplicated as I possibly can. This is important that people know how to do this, that mothers and grandmothers know how to use this. So, my friends, I want you to know that should you be interested, we are taking applications for our academy for the class of 2027. And so should you be interested at all, I'm sorry?
Go to the academy.
Oh, you go to the Academy of Practical Homeopathy and scroll down to where it says, join the founders list. At the top. Join the founders list. Love homeopathy, says Jen. Yeah, it's true freedom. That's what it is. That's very well put. Homeopathy is freedom. Freedom from worry, freedom from drugs, freedom from the mistakes that we've made in the past, freedom from overlords. Excuse me, I don't mean to be so dramatic, but there is a lot of that in our world of health. So I'm going to leave you here, and for those of you who are Mighty members, stay here because we're going to go on to more questions in my Mighty members. Are we ready, Perry?
Just smile.
Okay.